What's up, Reggie Wright Jr.? How you doing?
Good, brother. How you been?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Last week on Streets and Scholars, we had spoke about FG and I spoke about this album, Too Gangster for Radio, and I know you had a big part of that, so I wanted to chop it up with you for a few minutes about like take me back to that time when this album came out. I believe September of 2000 is the release date.
Yeah. I remember that album. Yeah, I heard y'all little episode about that as well. Had some issues with it.
Oh, okay. Well, let's start off with the issues.
Okay. Well, first of all, FG misspoke. I guess he said Key Rock was real instrumental in putting that album together. Key Rock was around. He was one of the homies, but he didn't have that type of juice around the company at the time.
Well,
But
how
I
did
don't
Key
know.
Rock from '60s get involved in that project in the first place?
Well, he was around. He was hanging around. Key Rock was hanging around, and You know, he got me and him got real close, and he developed a relationship with Suge. He came around through Daz, to be honest, and he was hanging out with Daz. And Keita Rock was a real good dude, and he was, you know, um, we was creating alliances, and he had a good relationship with the Crips, and the '60s, and he just kept being around and being persistent, and he got up under the wing. And I had hired him over there to be working with the street team and promotion. So
Okay.
yeah, that's what was up with Keita Rock. That's how he came around.
So what was the tension like with guys like Key Rock? Because the El Rey incident where Jamerson from '60s that happened in '96, '95.
Uh, 90, it was before Tupac came, so that would have been like 95. Yeah.
So tension must have been a little bit high with guys like Key Rock because of that incident. How did you kind of work all that out?
Well, like I said, over time, that issue went away, and you know, we never really felt it because of Corrupt and Daz did. I remember them being real scared and spooked, but we didn't have no issues, to be honest.
All right, so let's talk about this album. This is while you're the CEO of Death Row, right? At this point,
I ain't never been no CEO.
what
I
would you?
mean, Suge was always the CEO. I didn't really have a title. I didn't give myself a title,
But you weren't the
but I was
security
in
guard
charge of
no
everything.
more at this point.
I wasn't a security guard,
Yeah.
but I was running stuff. Everybody knew I was running stuff. I was the decision maker all over. But I had a lot of different people to pull from Daz, from Big C Style, the realist. I was Hutch 187. Matter of fact, he was involved in the project because Suge had me to reach out to him to help with some production on the production side. So yeah, there was a bunch of people that was around.
Okay. Was this sort of like the first project under your tutelage?
No,
No.
hell no, no.
No, because
I had put the
you were in
I
position
put
by
two.
'97, right?
Yeah, uh, yeah. I was in like June, July of '97. So now I had put together the Tupac Until the End of Time album. Helped them with the Still I Rise album. Uh, the Tupac Greatest Hits album, uh, Chronic 2000. No, oh hell no. I ain't gonna take credit for Michelet and the Lady of Rage album. They did that all on their own.
Where do you rank the Two Gangster for Radio compilation album that you guys did? Because it has a lot of heavy hitters on it.
We had a lot of people that we were trying to experiment to blow up to see who blew up from that. Um, but as far as me being in charge of with the DVD concept, and then that was really a soundtrack to the DVD that we did, Two Gangster for TV, and then we did the Two Gangster for radio. So of course that was one of my pet projects. Other than that, and Chronic 2000, because those were the two that I was completely in charge of. Um, Dad's album came out under my watch, but I approved videos and stuff like that. But he mainly did the production side. But those two albums were the two that I was totally responsible for and running things by Suge and get permission from him to do. Um, So of course those two albums gonna always be dear to my heart. Then of course I also put together the Dog Pound 2002 album and the the Snoop Dogg Dead Man Walking album. But those, so those was four albums. But I'm gonna always take credit for Until the End of Time and the Tupac Greatest Hit album because I know those albums wouldn't happen without my influence because Suge was a very very stubborn man during those days, especially with Interscope and Maru.
Okay, now you mentioned Daz. He's the producer on one of these songs. One of the questions I have about this compilation is, although it's West Coast influence, you have Ja Rule on this album.
Yeah,
The Locks are on this album. What was
yeah.
what was the thinking back then about
Well,
that?
that's when the Rough Riders was coming into town when we going to the locks, and me and this dude named Ja. It was two brothers that kind of ran Rough Riders, D and Ja. They used to come to California and L.A. and we used to look out for them. If you don't know what I mean by that, because of the relationship that the Rough Riders and we had with DMX and all of them at the time. And then, of course, when we went to New Jersey and went out there later on, when Suge got out, they looked out for us when we came out there. Were giving us things to put in our pockets. So, yeah. So we had a working relationship with Rough Rider. They were hot at the time, and so that's why we messed with them. Uh, and then Ja Rule, and then he was hanging and was cool with them. Um, the Irv Gotti situation because they were always trying to get stuff cleared, and we was using pop songs or beats and stuff like that, and we developed a relationship like that. I even think Tretch was on a couple of the songs. I'm not for sure which one it was. Tretch and Scarface, those were two. They used to always look out whenever I called and be like, "Shit, just send those over to ADAT, and we get our vocals on it and get it back." And so I don't know if it's the Chronic 2000 album or the Two Gangsta Radio with Tretch and Scarface got on a couple of songs for me.
Now
But yeah,
looking back at this album, that's 22 years ago. How do you feel about the heavy dissing of Dre and a couple other dudes? There's a few tracks here where it's all about dissing and going in on people.
yeah, I'm not one to regret what things that we do. I just like to speak on the truth. What I mean by that is when I talk about something, that's how we was feeling at the time. Suge, was his company. He was hating Dre. He was hating Snoop. He was doing that. Now things that may have changed, things may have been wrong, or we should have been more adults than anything. But that's how we felt at the time. So that's what the songs that how artists were able to get me and get Suge to approve being on the album by doing songs, like It's Easy to Be a Soldier When It Ain't No War, with my boy Swoop G and Lil C Style and the Realers. They knew they do stuff like that. The Realers knew. He say something called F Dre and all of that, or Hollywood, and which was on Chronic 2000. Talking about all the gay people and all of that stuff, telling about people from Hollywood that Suge was that's how Suge was feeling sitting in that cell, um, and that's how they were able to get positionings on the albums.
Now you
So
got
yeah, that's what
there's two Tupac tracks on this song, but they're obviously
yeah,
from '96.
correct.
How many songs of Tupac did you have to choose from that he already recorded that had never been released?
Well, I pretty much always say that they all going or used up. It might be a little bit here and there, but those were two. It was I know Thug Nature, I think it was.
And
Uh,
Friends,
who been there? Oh, was it Friends?
Friends and Thug Nature.
Okay, that was on that album. So that was, of course, put there to try to push the album. So when people always say, uh, y'all had problems with Afeni and she was mad and stuff like that, she wouldn't have allowed us to put those songs on those compilations if we had issues with them. She didn't charge us anything for those songs or anything, for her for us being put on those. I also did two songs on Chronic 2000 that was Tupac songs. So they were also put on. on the soundtracks or the compilations. But they were mainly put there to be honest, to help the sales of the albums or to get some type of notor you know, notability or being notarized or people talking about it, and to help the sales with the retailers for the retailers to to purchase the album.
So, what exactly did you have to deal with Afeni for? Because in 2000, all of Tupac's songs were still under death row ownership, right?
Correct. But what we had to deal with them for because we made an agreement with them that all of the songs that came out would be put up under Amaru and Death Row, like a joint venture type album. And then at the end of a 10-year period, the songs was going to revert back to her that hadn't been distributed prior to that, that wasn't on All Eyes on Me or Machiavelli. All of those songs that was put out post those two albums, that she would be able to get back ownership after 10 years, and we could only purchase for $1, I think it was, um, an album worth of songs that we would own as our masters recordings.
Now, the only reason why I resurrected this album from the dust is because I was trying to figure out what is still in the catalog for Snoop,
Well,
if and when he ever does get to own the music rights. And this is actually currently in Death Row's catalog. Is that correct?
that's correct. That's a catalog item that has never really Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon, but I never find these songs for streaming purposes and stuff. Which I understand Snoop pulled down, which I think is a good marketing tool on his part, where he just take everything off the internet, make people want these songs again, and then put a big push out on these particular songs and see what sells. He probably wouldn't want to put those songs out, but the public should demand that he put those albums out. Prior to me going to jail, the thing that's crazy about this, I had went and met with E1, and they were in the process of telling me to tell them the list of songs that wasn't online being streaming, and they were going to do a deal with me to do it. And so once he put it out, and started back up that conversation with them, and they said, "Well, let's see what happens, and then whatever songs that don't come out, they're going to license. They're not going to give them to me, but they're going to license them to me, and then we'll see what we put out." But it's not the deal is not like everybody think, where it's a straight up ownership. It's really a compensation thing where everybody involved is going to make some money. Um, what I mean by that is Snoop going to make money for doing his services and being in charge of it. That company, MNRK or MNK or whatever the name of that company is, they're going to still, generate and make money off of it. And people always saying Reggie hating, and he's mad and he's turning over in his grave. Well, y'all go do some researches on some names, even on this particular album. Who y'all think is Myron? Yeah, I
Who?
ain't never heard no producer called Myron. Yeah, I ain't never heard no producer called 99. These are all producers that signed to Simon Said Music Publishing. Who is who? Look it up. State of California Secretary of State. Look and see who owns Simon Said Music Production. Simon Says Films. Y'all be real, real shocked to learn who. Like Easy say, the success of Dre is a payday for
Easy
Reggie
E,
Wright.
right? Isn't it Easy E?
Well, no, that's what he said about Dre back on
Oh
some
yeah, yeah, yeah.
priority stuff. But I'm just trying to say, Simon Says Music Publishing, Simon Says Films is Reggie Wright Jr. And so the more success that Death Row have on Snoop make off of this stuff, it's just a big check sitting waiting for Reggie Wright Jr.
Oh, well, that's amazing if you was able to parlay that before you ended up leaving there. Uh, so
Oh,
so
that was done. Everybody know that was done back in '99.
what you're saying is that even though Snoop Dogg has some sort of ownership, it's still under the umbrella of MNRK.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're a hedge fund. They're not into doing music. They just all about bringing their investors a number or the number that they projected for that quarter. And so as long as Snoop is performing on something that's kind of been dead, he's gonna be a hero over there in that company. That's a little small. Death Row catalog is a little small piece, but it's projecting, it's bringing numbers to that projection that the investor, when he put up the money to buy that for his clients, he's going to have to perform. We know how Ponzi's and hedge funds work. It's all about bring us a number. We don't care about no notoriety and being the CEO of Death Row Records or the person. We just want that quarterly gold, man. If not, I get fired as a CEO, even if I'm the owner of the company. They will replace you, but the board will replace you.
Okay, now let me add, before we wrap this up, I'm curious about how all these artists appear on this compilation that are probably signed to other labels. How does that work to be on a Death Row Records compilation and someone like Ja Rule or The Locks, they were never signed to Death Row?
No, but they just allow it, like I said, that's what the D and Big Y relationship come that was on Rough Rider and Irv Gotti, and those were all the relationships came in, and they allowed them to appear on our albums. I don't remember paying any fee. It was all about just relationships and where they just gave it to us and said, "Oh, here, y'all can put this song on it." I think at the time it was one of those Jadakiss was doing a solo album, and I think the trade off for that was Suge was supposed to be at the beginning of Jadakiss solo album. It was supposed to be people like congratulating him at the beginning, talking about how pumping him or pumping up the album. And I think I was supposed to give some recording or got a recording to them where at the beginning of Jadakiss album, where Suge was going to be congratulating him for his upcoming single album coming out and all of that. And I don't know if it ever happened or if it ever came out, but that was the deal with Rough Riders. But like I said, Big Y and D I probably talked to them at least once or twice a month. The whole time when Rough Riders was on top of the game.
All right, lastly, other than this album, Too Gangster for Radio, what else is still left in the Death Row catalog? Because there's no Dre in there, there's no Pac. What is still there?
Unfinished albums.
No, the in terms of
I mean, unfinished music. You
no,
mean?
no,
Or
finished
oh,
music. What's
and that's
still
what I said.
left of
Finished music.
value in the Death Row catalog?
Not shit. Not even for the olds. Not even for the older people. Dre, Snoop, and Ice Cube got a song out right now. Most of the people in the comment section right now, without going to Google, which we all know we can do it, can't even tell us the name right quick of that album that's out or that song that's out.
Wait, but aren't both of Snoop's albums still part of the catalog? Doggy Style and the
Yeah,
Dogfather?
you asked me about unrecorded music. I mean, unput out music,
No, I'm talking
and
about
I was responding.
I'm talking about from the past, from the
Oh,
past
okay.
music. What's still
Oh
left
yeah,
in?
with Doggy Style. Yeah, yeah, Doggy Style. He doesn't have the chronic. Dre attorney jumped on y'all real quick, and everybody was saying, "You like, And Dre got his own master recordings and his own streaming rights. That ain't a part of that deal. Only thing I'm not sure about. Only thing I'm not sure about, because prior to this deal with Snoop happening, I knew that the streaming rights of Machiavelli and All Eyes on Me was about to revert back to the estate. I don't know if the master recordings is going to revert to the estate or stay with E1 under the NRK or whatever that company name banner, or if they're going to allow Snoop to control it. It's the only thing I don't know about.
Okay,
But I know the streaming rights and the streaming rights to the Chronic. were going back to the estate and to Dr. Dre.
And lastly, briefly talk about the cover of Two Gangster for Radio. It's got three sexy ladies and some dude that looks like he's being beat up.
Yeah, that's Julio G from 92.3, the radio station. That was the whole thing, where the whole this the whole thing on or the concept on that album cover was some fine chicks got into the studio because everybody don't remember what was going down in L.A. during that time. Niggas was getting women was sicking niggas was sicking women onto to artists and individuals,
Not none of the women I
and
knew.
then they come in, and then somebody will come and take over you, rob you, tie you up, and rob you, and take over. And so our concept was Julio G was working at 92.3, the beat, and the females got in there, tied him up, and they took over the radio station and was playing the stuff that on the radio that radios wouldn't play, and it was too gangster for radio, but we had to have the females come and take over the radio airs. That was the whole concept behind that album cover.
All right, Reggie Wright Jr., I could talk to you for a whole nother hour about this album alone, but we'll leave it there for now. I appreciate you tapping in on Streets and Scholars, and
Respect. Oh, now Alonzo, I can't come on this air and not talk to you.
okay, go ahead. What's on your mind?
You better. You owe James McDonald apology for getting involved in him and FG beef. That was
Oh,
personal beef between them. I gotta say it.
well, I
I
just
know
did
you
the
might
interview.
edit it.
I just did the interview with FG. So, are you saying
I
I should not have interviewed him?
but keeping it going. I think you kept your foot on the gas a little bit too long. But that's my boy, you my boy, and that's always gonna be. And I got something. We'll do an interview one day. But I think you might be right about my relationship with my boy Norman Steele. He did something to me this week that I'm not really happy about. But we'll talk about that another day.
Well, I'm not surprised about that. But in terms of
I do
keeping
might owe you. I might owe you an apology.
oh, okay, well, I
But
appreciate that. But in terms of me keeping the my foot on the pedal regarding the whole FG situation, is that every time those guys responded and retorted, they were suggesting that FG was a liar and that he was
I never
making
heard
it
James
all.
say that.
Yeah,
Never really
James.
heard James say that.
James said that in the interview he did with Rel from Detroit in so many ways, and he also did it in
He
the
was
in.
on the gas before that. That's what made him have to go and respond to that. You were on the gas before that.
Well, I don't know. I have to check the timeline on that. But when anyone suggests that an interview I'm doing with a dude is completely a lie, I have to respond. I gotta, you know.
Got you. Okay.
But
All right.
all right, Reggie, we're gonna talk again real soon. I
I know
appreciate
you
you.
very integrity with being journalist, and I hope it comes across that I have no dislike or anything towards FG. I think he's a solid brother. He's a little younger than my era, um, but I never heard no smirk on FG.
And there's
Nothing
no
bad about
and there's
FG.
no way I would have did an interview with him and let him speak all that if I didn't find it credible at all. You know, I found it 100% credible, and he came with receipts, and I just gave him a platform. If it wasn't going to be me, it would eventually would have been somebody else. So, you know, I did it, and I stand by it.
Respect, Alex.
All right, Reg, I'll holla back.
Peace.
This is episode 6 of Streets and Scholars. I just hollered at Reggie Wright Jr. regarding the Two Gangster for radio, and he gave us a lot of insight of what was going on 22 years ago. And he just had one issue with what you said about it was that he said Keita Rock didn't really have no influence or impact on the album.
Yeah, no, that was good information because you know how it is when people telling you about it. You know what I mean. So I wasn't actually there with Keita Rock. You know what I mean. But by the time it got to me, you know what I mean. That was the information I got. But Reggie, of course, was there, and he know exactly how it went. So I'm glad he cleared that up even for me. So
He also cleared up the dude on the cover. For some reason, I guess you had thought it was who?
somebody had told me it was Mac 10.
Yeah, Mac 10, but he said his Julio G from.
So I got a lot of misinformation on that album.
Hey, it happens, you know, and that's what we hear on Streets and Scholars. We correct our mistakes, and then we go to the source to get the right information. And Yeah, they was definitely hating on Dre, and I guess that was coming from Suge. Suge was hating, and they just followed suit.
No doubt, but now when he put something in perspective about when he was saying the artist was saying, fuck Hollywood, and I remember those songs. I think that was, I think he said that was on Dre album, but when they don't understand that hindsight, you look around and you see who's giving the opportunities out now. It's basically people that you dissing. You know what I mean? Dre and Snoop are in some great positions to, you'll never get a shot. You know what I mean? Or Hollywood may never give you a shot just based on some of the shit that come out your mouth. So not telling nobody to be mindful or nothing like that, but I'm sure it's a lot of artists that done said some things and they came back to bid them where they weren't able to get in position that they want to for something that they said in their music. You know what I mean?
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, this to me the album is still kind of fascinating because of the names on the album, all the artists on the album. I mean, he got 2 Tupac tracks on there. Apparently, there's these thoughts and ideas that Tupac recorded hundreds of songs, but apparently there's not a whole lot of Tupac songs that are unreleased.
Yeah, I thought it was a million of them out there somewhere. Shit, there's so many of them coming out, but you got to think about how many actually came out, after he passed. And this song still came out within the last year or 2 or 3 from all over the country with, people on the album. He on the album with people. So it was a bunch of songs, but over all these years, I'm sure by now they might have been used.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything left, any unheard or unreleased Tupac songs. I think we've heard it all. I mean, I would love someone to say, yeah, we got a few songs here or there, but I don't think.
Suge got something put up somewhere.
Hey, maybe, huh?
You know what I mean? I think Suge got a lot of shit put up somewhere as far as that music is concerned.
If Suge has some Pac songs somewhere, Reggie Wright would know. Because Reggie said there's no way that Suge could have done something like that without him knowing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think Suge could do some stuff without you knowing.
Yeah.
But Reggie claims that they're so tight that if he got 10, 15 songs of Pac, he knows where they're at. So I don't know. Any last thoughts on the 2 Gangsta for Radio compilation from 2000?
Nah.
All right. Lastly, before Reggie got off the phone, he had to pick a bone with me for I didn't even understand it. For doing the interview with you? What was that?
Yeah, no, I mean, he stated what other people had said. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's facts. I'm just saying people have their opinion, and there was a few people that I heard say that. So I don't think you did. I think you did a great job on the interview. I came in, you allowed me to say what I wanted to say, and
Yeah, I would have just left it alone at that, but it just seems like every time there was a response or there was a quote unquote interview, the theme of their interviews were that the paperwork was faulty.
Right.
Or without directly saying this, of course.
Right.
But the paperwork was faulty and that your story is not true.
Exactly.
But what really killed me is there was one video where Mob James was speaking and he says, I ain't gonna speak bad about FG. I ain't gonna speak down on FG. And I'm saying to myself, if somebody accuses me of being a rat and I'm not a rat, I'm gonna speak down on that person.
Well,
right?
I got you, but maybe he felt that you had an angle. Maybe he felt it was, something more than just me coming up. You know what I mean? Maybe if I did it with another journalist or somebody else, he wouldn't have felt the same way. But at the same time, I do believe that he felt, it was personal, a little personal.
Well, a lot of people think that Mob James and myself were like super close or super tight because we did the podcast for a year. And we really weren't that close. We spoke on the phone sometimes. Outside of the podcast, I didn't see him out anywhere. He ain't never been to my studio. He ain't never been to my place. I didn't know him prior to the podcast. Mm-hmm. I actually did go to his mom's funeral. Mm-hmm. But other than that, we never hung out. So people got this perception that him and I was tight.
Oh, okay. Because I heard y'all had vacation together a couple of times.
Never.
I'm just messing with you.
Nah, we wasn't tight at all. And even throughout the podcast relationship, I spoke more to Reggie. Reggie would call me up. I would call him up. Him and I kind of vibed a lot on the phone. Talked to James a few times. So for all those people out there that think like this guy was like my best friend,
Yeah.
and then I
Well,
turn
I mean, he was a
around,
coworker, so
yeah,
you guys worked together. It was what it was, man. And you moving on, and just like everybody else, So hey, you know how it go.
yeah. So I don't know what Reggie means. I put the foot on the gas pedal, but hey, and then lastly, we'll move on from this topic. But lastly, there were two videos that they did that really kind of rubbed me the wrong way because the undercurrent theme of it is that our interview was faulty, and that's the one he did with some dude from Detroit named
Right,
Rel.
right.
That whole interview was
Yeah, I
is
didn't like it. Yeah,
lies.
yeah. I was felt some kind of way about that as well. Now I didn't blame Ralph so much because I don't know the guy, and I know he doesn't know me, but he spoke on me. He mentioned my name, and he tried to make it seem like I was discreditable. You know what I mean? So yeah, I feel you on that exact situation.
And then the other one was an interview he did with a dude from Sacramento named Seti Nash, where Seti Nash basically just let him speak and not question the facts.
Right.
He gave him a free pass to pretty much discredit the interview and
Right,
discredit him being an informant. But come on, y'all. Shoot, it's pissing me off. All right, we're gonna move on to a couple of other topics now. We're gonna talk about this Cain Velasquez case because this is an incredible, amazing case. And for those who don't know, go back and listen to episode 5. We talked about it briefly on episode 4, but Cain Velasquez, who is charged with shooting the alleged chomo of his 4-year-old son, is still in jail.
Yeah, no doubt. There was rumors running around that he had got bail, and I was happy for it. I thought he was out, but apparently right now they still got him locked up. Where somewhere in Santa Clara somewhere?
Yeah, he's in the Santa Clara County Jail. He is denied bail, but his next court date is on April 12th. So I believe that he will get bail because everyone is entitled to bail.
I mean, I'm sure they pushing for it. You know what I mean? No doubt.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that how sometimes as soon as you get arrested, the judge at arraignment, you get your bail.
Right, no doubt.
But for whatever reason, they decided no bail on Cain Velasquez, and they're making him wait till April maybe.
Yeah. I'm probably trying to see how he responds and how he acts up until then. What his disposition is. Probably listen to his phone calls, see if he in a state of mind where he's saying I'm gonna go after him again, or look, I know I messed up. I really need to be home with my family. It all depends probably on his attitude and his response towards the situation. If he have any, I can't say remorse because I don't expect him to have any, but maybe if he just have an understanding that I did wrong, you know what I mean, they might take that into consideration.
Now, the handful of times that I've been arrested, I was given bail every single time except once, and then I got bail immediately after.
Mm-hmm.
What is your experience with bail? Do you usually get your bail right away and try to take advantage of that?
Normally, I did, you know what I mean, and like I said, I kind of got a little too cocky with it, you know what I mean, by mentioning to the hey man, 12 hours, man.
Oh,
That was
you
my
talking
thing,
about
12 hours,
that
yeah.
Fed case, huh?
Well, no, even in the state, I get at them, look sheriffs in the eye, 12 hours, man. I'll be right back out here, And when I went to the feds, it's crazy you mentioned that because my attorney and the U.S. attorney had agreed to give me a bond, a $300,000 equity bond. So my mother-in-law, my wife, they came with the deeds and everything, and they had already, because my lawyer said, listen, we're not going to go to court if they don't agree to give you a bond. It's useless. She agreed to give me one. Carol Peterson, U.S. attorney at the time, agreed to give me a bond, 300,000 equity. We came with extra, and but the feds came to the bail hearing. And went and had a sidebar with the judge, and the judge said he's not a flight risk. I believe he'll be at court every single time, on time. I'm concerned about what he's going to be doing in between those court dates. And they came in and shut it down. Whatever they told that judge, they had agreed to give me one. They shut it down right then.
So initially you was given a $300,000 bail?
Yep.
And then they took it back?
They took it back when the feds came to the hearing. They actually showed up. So they went, like I say, talked to the judge, and they swayed her to, don't let me get it,
And did they actually speak in open court saying we think that FG should not get bail because of XYZ.
No, but when she said I'm concerned about what you're gonna be doing between the court dates, she pretty much told me that they probably thought that I would go hunting for somebody or looking for somebody to, you know.
So at this bail hearing, you had already figured out Mob James was part of your case.
No doubt.
You spoke to Drew about everything.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Cause
Okay.
this a couple months later.
Okay, it's a couple months later.
Yeah.
Okay, so your whole everything's unraveling for you, and you figuring it all out.
Right.
Okay, so I can understand. Okay, they're basically in my opinion, they basically like, okay, he knows who informed on him. If we give him a bail, this can go bad for everybody.
This can go bad. I already knew what they said as soon as they said it, and
at that time, you was probably on one, right?
you know what the thing about is like, my wife say this all the time. She says almost probably good that you did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're not thinking, man. All you thinking is, I can't believe this, you know. But what the U.S. attorney did jump up and say, because I was a homeowner at the time myself, I had, you know, a couple few hundred thousand worth of equity myself. And she did jump up there and say, you know, it's funny that his mother-in-law bring her deeds and his fiance at the time bring her deeds, but nobody brought his. I said, well, they be working, man.
What is the issue about that?
Well, you know, I just figured that they wouldn't let me bring my own because I'm the, you know what I mean? So they may, I looked at it as they may say no based on, I wouldn't mind jeopardizing my property, you know what I mean? So, you know, like I say, I had others bring it, my wife and my mother-in-law. Yeah, but she did jump up and say that, you know. We kind of laughed a little later about that, you know, because they be working. They know everything about you, man.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know. I didn't know you were almost got out on bail for that.
Mm-hmm.
But bail is important because, especially if you're gonna fight your case, because it's better to meet with your attorney outside of a confined environment,
No
to
doubt.
go to their office, to strategize, not do it over these jail phones.
Exactly.
Did you try to tell the judge, hey, I'm not even tripping on this dude. I just want to fight my case?
You know what? I didn't because this was my longtime attorney. So we had an understanding that of things, you know. And if he didn't press, you know, I didn't follow the press, you know. In other situations where he said, no, I'm going to put you up on the stand for yourself, you know. He didn't like putting people on the stand, his clients up on the stand, but evidently he knew it, you know, in certain situations I can handle it, you know. So he didn't push no further. I left it alone but I really thought I was finna get out. That was the whole thing about, okay, they gave me a bond, I'm finna go home. I can really I did have things to get in order, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it got shut down, yeah.
So you're talking about your attorney, Frank DiGiacomo, right?
No doubt, yeah.
Okay. And who's rested in peace. He actually passed, I believe, 2007, kind of right during your
Not too
case,
long,
right?
yeah. It was a little while after the case. He had got sick during the case, but then he finally passed away, like maybe a year or two later. Yeah.
Okay, man, this whole bail situation is really interesting because there's been counties across the country that have been deciding to think more progressive and get rid of bail.
Right.
You know, have you heard about this?
No, you know what? I thought they were doing it in January. And what they were saying was that they weren't getting rid of it. What they were going to do was you had to go see the judge first. And then the judge had to okay the bail. So that was going to at least put you in jail 3 to 7 days before you see a judge in order for you to get a bail. And it didn't go through. It didn't pass. Or I ain't going to say it didn't pass. They didn't put it into effect. You know?
Okay. I thought it was going to go into effect, but I haven't really been keeping up with it. So I think that Cain Velasquez will get a bail when he goes to court on April 12th because it's part of the Constitution. We're all entitled to bail except in crazy cases.
Right.
I don't think Charles Manson was ever going to get a bail.
No doubt.
Serial killers don't get a bail, but you can get a bail for a double homicide.
Well, you know, to be surprised at how they do and how they don't.
Well, you know, O.J. Simpson didn't get bail back in the day.
Right. That's what I say. But that was a high profile. Yeah, that was a big case.
But he's not a flight risk though.
No, but at
celebrity.
the same time, double murder. You know.
Yeah, but the whole thing is about being a flight risk and having an opportunity to fight your case.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, he should get a bail. His bail probably should be somewhere. They're gonna hit him with that shooting. Should be somewhere around 100,000, or less than that. How did they figure $300,000 for your bail? What was that determined
You
by?
know what? I don't know. I don't know if they thought it was a number because it was an equity bond. You have to bring equity. And I don't know if it was a standard number that they had. I don't know if it was a number that they thought I couldn't produce. I don't know how did they get to that number, but that was the number that was agreed. I don't know if my attorney negotiated, like maybe they said 4 or 5 and they said, well, no, how about 3? I'm not 100% sure on that.
Because that's kind of high though, 300,000 just for a little dope case.
I mean, I
right?
thought it was, man. It was ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Hey, we were talking about the January 6th Capitol riot that happened at the Capitol building last year, and what was that? No, it's going on. Yeah, a year ago. We talked about a lady that got killed. Her name was Ashley Babbitt.
Okay.
She was 35 years old, and she was a 14-year veteran of the Air Force.
Damn.
And she got killed by a Capitol Police, and she was actually trying to climb into the building or go through the window at the time. And what I'm tripping on is that you're a veteran, you're a soldier, you're someone that's supposed to be respecting America and everything that America represents. But at the same time, you're a part of this Capitol thing, this Capitol attack. I just find it crazy that soldiers, and there were police officers, soldiers, police officers were part of this chaos.
See, I had it twisted. I thought she was on the inside with them and got shot.
Nah, she was one of the rioters.
Bro, I didn't know that.
She was one of the rioters.
Yeah,
In fact, they did a whole thing on her. She was part of this conspiracy group called QAnon, which are a bunch of crazy right-wing Trump followers.
Right.
But she's 14 years in the military, and she was a part of this whole crazy riot. And it turns out there was a lot of people, a lot of soldiers, a lot of cops.
police.
Yeah.
America, bro. It was a piece of America that was trying to do that.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
we didn't mention her name when
I
we
thought
spoke
she
about
was
that.
on the inside and got popped. Well,
Nah,
yeah.
she was one that I looked up a lot of articles, and a lot of them say that she deserved it.
Right.
It was a justifiable shooting. She was going through the window,
Yeah.
and she was part of the chaos, and she got killed. She's the main person that got killed. Before I go on to the next one, everything good back here? All right.
If I touch this, is it gonna go over?
No, you don't gotta even. That one's good. So we brought her up because we were talking about Guy Reffitt, and his sentencing will be on June 8th.
Yeah, I'm waiting on that.
Yeah,
I
so
wanna see
we
how that
gonna
go.
pay attention because
Still got the numbers wrote down? Or
you said he's gonna get 15 years.
Yeah.
And I said he's going to get 9.5 years. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, you got to go back to episode 5. And we went into depth about Guy Reffitt. This is the dude, this is the white guy that decided he wanted to take it to trial.
Yeah.
Which is usually, I heard that when you got a Fed case, it's usually not a good idea.
Not a good idea at all, unless you want that extra time. But let me be clear. People do go to trial so they can leave their appeal rights open.
Yeah.
Because when you take a plea agreement, most of the time you're giving up your appeal rights. So I do know people that say I'm gonna take it all away so I can keep my appeal rights, and that's the positive with that. In his position, I think that wasn't the case. I'm not sure, but I think they're gonna make him pay for it though.
Yeah, well, I hope he does pay because some of these almost 800 people who've been popped for rioting the Capitol building, they've all been getting sweet deals because they're taking them, But this guy took it to trial. But John Gotti used to take the feds to trial, but he pissed the feds off.
They didn't believe in that shit. They didn't believe in taking deals.
Nah.
And they used to get bust upside their head. I mean, some of them could have got 10 some of them got 30 when they could have got 10.
Well, they washed John Gotti up on that last one. They
Yeah.
gave him life without. So
Right.
he was never going to come home.
No, he wasn't. But at the end of the day, they say he still beat him. He only did 10 before he passed. They say he still got him.
That's crazy. So he
Yeah.
still won, huh?
He still won.
Because he
You know
only
what I
did
mean?
10.
Yeah.
Hey, he did a lot of his time in Marion, and I always hear crazy stories about Marion. I know you never went to Marion, but you must have heard about what was going on in
Oh,
Marion.
no doubt. I had some of the homies that came from Marion, and you hear all the stories about them, man. That's over there in Illinois, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was rocking and rolling over there, So, you got different prisons, different situations, and some of the names it just go down like that, man. Lewisburg, Marion, Terre Haute back in the day. These.
What about Leavenworth?
Leavenworth back in the day. A lot of these prisons are older now. So, they building new prison, building new, stronger USPs. So Marion may not be a USP anymore. It could be, but I know some of them like Lompoc. Legendary USP is it's a medium now, just based on it's 100 years old, man.
Okay. Now there was this one funny story when John Gotti was in Marion. A brother beat him up in the bathroom, and he beat him up pretty good. Touched him up good,
Yeah.
bloody nose, lip, everything. So when the police came and got him, they asked John Gotti, "What happened, man?" He said, "I fell down." And that's it.
Yeah,
He said, "I fell down." He kept the code, man. As much as we hate John Gotti, and I say we meaning American society, that's one dude that stood to the code all the way to the end.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm over here smirking, man, because I was actually growing up, a fan basically. I didn't know all the politics on the racism side of it and those sort of things, but watching the movies, man, hearing the name, it was more the honor, the code that they stood by, man. That I always liked about them. Always watched the documentaries and the movies, and
How do you feel about Sammy the Bull? That was his right hand man, but he turned state's evidence.
you know what, Sammy was a cold killer, man, and but once he did that, I mean, look, I walked the yard with dudes from different crime families doing 40, 50 years. These dudes came in at 22, man. They 42 now. And they still carry a solid, and they able to walk those yards. Yeah, they probably couldn't win a fight, but just the respect that what they did and how they stepped to the code, they walked the yard just like everybody else, and it's respected. Sammy the Bull, hey, like I say, he chose to do what he had to do or felt he had to do. But I think he should have did what the rest of them did and rolled it out and took it on the chin.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
If you live in that life,
Yeah, he knew what he
But
signed up for.
you know what you signed up for.
And you even signed up for John Gotti might turn on you. You
All
might
that.
turn on him. That's
Exactly.
part of the game,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But what's crazy to me is that they wanted John Gotti so bad they was willing to allow him to testify and admit to 19 murders, and he only got 5-year
He
sentence.
only got 5 years. Well, that lets you know what America do. It lets you know that when they have a bigger objective, a bigger perspective, a bigger something they want, they ain't gonna stop at nothing to get it.
I feel like the Fed should be embarrassed that they were willing to allow a guy like Sammy the Bull basically walk for being a part of 19 murders.
No, no doubt. I mean, but like I say, it shows the hand of America. As far as what they will do and what they won't do, what they will allow and what they won't allow. Just like they giving all these sweet deals to these Capitol rioters. You know what I mean? They only gonna make example of the one dude. I feel one or two, three people. The rest of them, like you say, you never gonna hear about what kind of deal they got. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, hopefully, Guy Reffitt will get something that is satisfying for us at least, a real sentence, and he gets sentenced on June 8th, and he will definitely be going to at least an FCI. All right.
Right, but let me clear this up. I don't want to sit here and say I want to see the guy get 50 years, 40 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What I'm basically saying, because I wouldn't give a damn if he went home as far as, how the feds play it and how the judicial system works. What I'm saying is I want them to be fair on how they sentence us. I got 10 years for 98.8 grams of cocaine. You know what I mean? And this guy can go up in the Capitol and raid the Capitol and get 7, or you know what I mean? That all I'm saying is either make it equal, you know what I mean? Bring them up like they do us, or bring us down like you do them. That's basically what I'm saying, you know what I mean? But I want to reiterate that, I'm not an advocate for, people just getting a whole bunch of time, man, from the United States government. That's just why I feel.
Well, the way I feel about it is that I don't mind seeing a guy like Guy Reffitt get a whole lot of time, because oftentimes I feel like the justice system is an unequal system that punishes and oppresses people of color more so.
No, you're absolutely right, and I look at it in those areas too. But I also respect his gangster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I ain't gonna bullshit you. I'm
He
like,
took a pistol.
Yeah,
He took a
hey,
pistol
man,
to the Capitol.
Hey, and got the troops and told them, come on. We gonna put it on the line, and they went with him. You know what I mean? Some people can't go to the hood and get 6 people to go to a burger stand in another neighborhood with them, opposed to this dude got a crew 800. I mean, I ain't saying he did everything himself, but at the same time, So in that aspect, you know what I mean.
But see, I like that he kept it gangster, but he kept it gangster over a issue that was not even true. It wasn't real.
Right,
This
right,
election being stolen.
No, no doubt, no
You know,
doubt.
so that's why I want to see this dude get washed up. But these people aren't the first ones to really try to do something gangster at a Washington D.C. or government establishment, because the Black Panthers up in Oakland, I think it was 1968 or 69. They walked into their Capitol building with shotguns during proceedings, and at that time it was legal.
Oh shit.
It was legal to be armed and to walk into a government building with guns.
Yeah.
And then Governor Reagan changed the law back then.
Man, Reagan changed everything.
Yeah, but I thought that was pretty gangster when the Panthers went up in I believe that was Sacramento with pistols, with shotguns, which was legal at the time. But this also reminds me of a woman named Lolita Lebron. I think this is like 1955, 1958. She was fighting for independence of Puerto Rico because Puerto Rico is basically like a slave state to the United States. We don't really talk about Puerto Rico, a little island out there in the Caribbean.
Right.
It's basically a slave colony to the U.S., and a lot of people fighting currently for independence. Lolita Lebron walked into basically the same place where Guy Reffert was at. Not only did she went in there, she started blasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she ended up getting, I think she got a life sentence, but Bill Clinton may have pardoned her, after she had already did 40 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Guy Reffert ain't the first one to do this, but he to me, he did it under an issue that wasn't real.
No doubt. I don't speak on the issue because they was filed as all outdoors. You know what I mean? They did it I believe they did it on the whole racial grounds for something else. You know what I mean? And they wanted to continue to push what they were pushing, their agenda. You know what I mean? And they took it as far as they took it. You know what I mean? That's a whole separate issue when I speak. But yeah, I do believe that the issue that they went up in there was false.
Yeah, and because he had that gun and the federal sentencing guideline that we spoke about, he should get at least 5 years,
No
right?
doubt. You know what I mean?
If he gets anything less than 5 years, I'm gonna be disappointed, man.
No, I'm gonna be disappointed if he get anything less than 10. To
But
be honest
yeah,
with
you're saying 15. I'm saying 9.5, and we'll find out on June 8th. Do me a favor. Can you close that window? So last thing I want to talk about is we talked about Jussie, and he got sentenced to 150 days, but he walked out of jail after 6 days.
Hey, we was just talking about bail. You know what I mean?
And we weren't able to talk about it because it actually happened right after we did our last episode.
right after.
Yeah. So
Well, the thing about it is, no, let me take that back. He didn't get a bail. He got released on his own recognizance. As long as he show up for court and everything, he doesn't have to pay the $150,000.
because he's appealing.
Yes, so he doesn't have to put it up yet. I mean, he may have it on the line or had to show that he had it, but at the same time, he really was released on his own recognizance.
Absolutely, because an appellate court in Illinois ordered him to be released while he's fighting his appeal.
And I don't know if we could double check that, but I thought it was 6 days he was out of there.
Yeah, you're right. It was 6 days.
Yeah. He didn't waste no time getting up out of there.
No, and I'm a little surprised because the appellate court went over the judge's decision to sentence him.
But damn, that was fast. How they even get the paperwork up there that fast? Damn.
I don't know, but I ain't never
Somebody
seen.
had some pull.
Did you see how many lawyers Jussie had in court?
I did.
The dude had like 5 lawyers, and everybody was fighting for him. I'm like, I ain't
Yeah.
never seen nobody with 5 lawyers except OJ.
Hey man, somebody, shooting him that bread over there to make it right for him.
Now, what the lawyers are arguing, and we don't know where this stands, is that they're arguing double jeopardy.
But they do have a point. You know what I mean? Like I say, until I got fully involved and start investigating and checking out the case, investigating the details of the case, he already had been sentenced to probation and community service.
Yep.
So how you double back and give him another sentence or send him to, another court to give him more time, unless is a jurisdiction issue, or I'm not sure at all how that went down.
Well, I think there was some shady stuff that happened in his initial charge. There was a prosecutor named Kim Fox, she was friends with Jussie's people. So they basically gave him a pass the first time, and that's when they gave him, would they give him probation or
Yeah,
community
probation and
service?
community service, yeah.
It turns out
No,
that,
I'm sorry, a fine and community service.
yeah, it turns out that because all of that was done sort of like a backdoor deal, and it went against the Chicago PD's investigation. I don't know if that sentence was even justified.
Well, the thing about it, if the judge knocked that gavel and gave him that $10,000 fine and community service, it was justified. I do understand a lot of backdoor things happen, a lot of deals get worked and all that. I understand that part. But once he hit that gavel, that sentence is in the books.
I think you might be right. I think you might be right. It's difficult because technically he was sentenced.
He was, and from what my understanding was, say if another court wanted to come supersede it, the other case would have had to been dropped first. I know even I know sometimes even when the feds do that, the state to pick you, grab you for a gun case, the state gonna dismiss the case. Then the feds are gonna come charge you. He was never his case wasn't dismissed. He was dismissed. He was found guilty on that or took the deal. Took the deal.
Well, part of his appeal is arguing that when they brought in the special prosecutor, which is the prosecutor after Kim Fox, that was not valid because now that exposes him to double jeopardy, meaning that, hey, we already got fined, we already got sentenced. But I'm wondering, does that mean that he pled guilty? See, that's the thing I don't know, because I don't think Jussie ever said, I'm guilty.
Right.
And I think the prosecutors are trying to find a loophole to go around it.
I mean, if he pled no contest and they slapped that gavel, I mean, it's the same. It's a conviction for that case, but just not a admission. So it could have went that way too. So I'm not 100% sure either. You definitely have to check back into that. But he's out, bro.
Yeah. So there might be a chance that if it is double jeopardy, he will end up getting this conviction overturned, and he could now claim innocence all he wants again.
I mean, I don't think he's going back regardless, to be honest with you. I don't think even if they do wrangle up something where the conviction sticks or something like that, I don't think he's going to go back in the cell.
Okay, well, I was just reading here that the original case was dismissed after he agreed to pay the fine and do the community service. So what does that mean if it was dismissed?
After he did the fine and community service.
The original case was dismissed, so I'm a little confused.
Yeah,
Then it
me
might
too.
not be double jeopardy. If they dismiss the case because you agreed, I'll pay a fine. I think what the defense is going to say is, hey, when Jussie agreed to pay the fine and the community service, that means this case is over.
Right.
But they're going to say, well, no, we dismissed the case. This case never came to a conclusion. We just dismissed it, and we just gave him the fine.
No doubt. And in most cases that's dismissed, you usually have I've had a case dismissed on illegal search and seizures, but they still got 1 year to come refile it.
Correct.
So he may be in that situation where all they doing is refiling it with a different attorney, and that attorney gonna go hard. He not gonna sweep it under the rug like that. So that's highly possible.
So I kind of think that they are going to find an argument to say that because it was dismissed, the second prosecution was really the first prosecution.
Well, the thing about it is, if he would have if it would have been better off for him to take some kind of no contest plea.
Yeah.
Because the plea would have solidified that the case is done. When something is dismissed, yeah, you usually got the terms to come back and refile it, and it can be. I know I was in Torrance, and I got a case dismissed, and oh man, I fought hard. We fought hard, me and Frank DeGiacomo over in Torrance, man, and the case got dismissed on a Friday. Frank called me Monday and said, bro, they refiled already. He said, we going to walk back up in there. We going to fight it again. And I never forget that the Torrance police had subpoenaed the Linwood and Compton sheriffs to come be a witness for them about some prior arrests that they had on me from back in the day. So the second time I went to go fight it, they brought their big guns out. So I already know that they can refile it, no doubt, if it's a dismissal.
Absolutely. And, if you grow up in these streets, anytime your case is dismissed, in the back of your mind they might be coming back.
And it might not be over.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. That's the case with Jussie.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was dismissed. I thought he took the plea of maybe a no contest, maybe a because he did get paid a fine and do the community service. So I thought he had took some kind of plea. Being that it was dismissed, they may have full range to come back and recharge.
That's what I think. I think the original prosecutor that did the shady deal, Miss Fox, I think she probably told Jussie, "Look, I'm gonna dismiss the case, but you got to do something
Right.
to make it look
Exactly.
like
Give us some kind of effort. Yeah.
So they agreed to the fine and the community service, but I think the dismissal kept it open for them to come back.
Yeah.
But of course, his attorneys are gonna be like, no.
No, they're gonna argue back
Yeah.
and forth and come to some kind of agreement. But I think at the end of the day, man, they really going for him this time. He may just come out with that conviction, even if he don't do no more jail time.
Yeah, and it reminded me of the Rodney King situation back in '92. The 4 cops that went on trial for beating Rodney King they went on trial in this happened in '91 actually. The rise was '92, but they were all found not guilty.
Right.
So that means you can't prosecute them again.
No, you can't prosecute them again on a not guilty. Well, they went to trial.
But yeah, they went to trial,
Yeah,
was
yeah.
found not guilty.
So once you go to trial and you found not guilty, you can't refile on that.
But they end up going to prison because the feds came. The feds charged them with a different offense. They charged them
Yeah, it's a different offense.
violating the civil rights of Rodney King.
Is that what they end?
But people were saying, "Yo, that's double jeopardy."
Yeah,
Even though you came in, the feds came in with a different offense.
Right.
You know, they found a loophole. And I mean, I wanted those cops to go to jail, but I was like, "Hey, if the feds can do this, they can do that to anybody."
Oh, no doubt.
You could be found not guilty in state court and think, okay, I'm free, no double jeopardy. The feds can come in and charge you with a slightly different offense.
They usually don't for anybody though. The feds are usually pretty much cool with their Fourth or Fifth Amendment rights though. They really don't go that hard on you when it's a issue of certain things involved. So I mean, if they want you, don't get me wrong, they coming. But most of the time, they kind of respect those amendments, man. You know what I mean? When they prosecuting their case because they want 100% of your ass. They don't want to come in there fighting.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I felt that those 4 cops did deserve going to jail for hitting Rodney King 55 times with a
Man, that was
baton.
ridiculous, man.
But the jury here in California found them not guilty, but the feds decided. I think that was under the first George Bush. I never even heard of this, violating the civil rights of a person.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, that's how the feds got them. And Stacey Koon, I think he did like 3 years. You know.
Remember Coon?
Yeah, Stacey Koon. Let me see if I can remember the name. Stacey
I
Koon, Theodore Briseño,
Got a good memory,
Timothy
man.
Wynn, and who was the
Timothy
4th
Wynn,
one?
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah, so I can only remember 3 of them.
yeah.
So we'll find out if there's going to be this double jeopardy issue with Jussie Smollet. I think he should just sit down and do his 150 days and end this thing, right?
Man, he wasn't even gonna do 150, man. But
Nah.
you know what I mean? They talk about even right now on the internet. They saying, well, in the news they're saying that the internet is on his head so much that they don't feel like he can make it in jail. What the hell the internet got to do it in jail? People out here using their thumbs to type whatever they want to type. They not in jail with you. Plus, you not finna do. They gonna have you somewhere by yourself half the time. You know, I think one of the reasons they may have let him out, because they don't want to babysit him. You know what I mean? They was like, this dude is taking up too much resources to have him in his own cell or in his, we talking county jail. They don't do that shit. They throwing you in there. So I think they might have said, hey, it's taking up too much resources to even have this dude here. Let him go fight his appeal on the street. And like I said, I don't think he's going to ever go back and do the rest of them days.
Yeah, we'll keep everybody up to date on Juicy, and we'll just wrap that up right here. Episode, what was this? Episode 6?
Yeah. it's
Streets
moving
and
along.
Scholars.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. Holla at FG at FG Unleashed for your YouTube
No doubt.
and your Instagram.
FGeneral1 on Instagram. Y'all hit me up.
And you can hit me up at Alex Alonso 101, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And then hit me up on the Street TV. I got some new interviews dropping. In fact, I got Gangsta from Santana Block dropping. I got retired Compton police officer John Rick Baker dropping. And I also have a youngster from Fruittown, Piru, Jay Stone, who some of you guys may have seen a couple years ago. I got him
Okay.
back. And that wraps up Streets and Scholars.